needs to know, and Zelensky, again, I think he was alluding here, he just didn't pull the thread enough. Russia has never followed the ceasefire agreements from 2014. And certainly when the full-scale started, there were many more. In Mariupol, there were failed humanitarian corridors. The Christmas ceasefire here. There's just a lot of things that came up where Russia said that they were going to cease fire, and they didn't. Lech Walesa, one of the heroes of the Polish solidarity movement, said that Russia always has one hand holding the pen, another holding a hand grenade. There are reasons that people say these things. It's just these are entrenched, deep reasons. And again, Zelensky tried to pull the thread, not enough. Here's another one. This came at about 1:25 in the video. The Budapest Memorandum. Now, this has been talked about ad nauseum. I know the Budapest Memorandum was not a treaty, was not a binding treaty. Again, Russia and Ukraine had many binding treaties signed about the sovereignty of their land, including the land of Crimea, in the 90s. Okay, the biggest one was in 1997. It's called the Big Treaty. In his book, Provoked, Scott Horton never mentioned the Big Treaty in the context of Russia violating it at all, not once. Most apologists for Russia never talk about how Russia has violated every possible border treaty that Ukraine and Russia had together, which they absolutely did. But even throwing all those things aside, this was actually an interesting point. I would encourage you to go back and read what he says about the Budapest Memorandum. The word assurances versus guarantees. I know it was not a guarantee. It was not a treaty. And looking back as an American, I was young in the 90s, not paying attention to this stuff at all. Zelensky as well, by the way. But he's talking about going back, even in 2014, trying to invoke the Budapest Memorandum. And what he talks about is that all that they said is that we're supposed to have meetings. In the UK, in the US, we're just supposed to have meetings. And what I very much liked in this interview is he said, this chapter is not closed. We are not letting go of this. We're not forgetting about it. We're not just tearing this piece of paper up. The Budapest Memorandum meant something. We gave up our nuclear arsenal for you, the West, all right, led by Bill Clinton at the time at the table. For you, Yeltsin, the drunk Yeltsin, the leader of Russia at the time at the table. The UK as well was involved there. So it's a very short text. It's nothing fancy. The Budapest Memorandum. You can read it. Ukraine, the Russian Federation, the United Kingdom, the United States of America, talking about the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which is a UN treaty. This memorandum, which talks about the sovereignty of Ukraine, the borders of Ukraine. It says it specifically. All right. So someone has violated this. You can talk all you want about who should have done what or who didn't do what. Someone has violated this, and it sure as hell is not Ukraine. And good on Volodymyr Zelensky for sticking to this point and for saying, for sure, this chapter is not closed. We will be using this in the future, as they damn well should. So I encourage people to just understand that if words are going to mean anything, and again, Russia always has one hand on that hand grenade and one hand on the pen, but if words and treaties are going to mean anything, or memorandums of understanding, you need to follow them. You need to follow up with them. You need to have some, again, if this is the rule of law, not the rule of only war, then words need to mean something. So I really thought that this was a good point that probably most commentators didn't talk about enough. But he said in this interview, we've not given up on the Budapest Memorandum.